The world of anime has so many great shows to offer, but I got into anime by watching Naruto. Back in middle school, this was such a different vibe from the shows I was watching in PBS Kids.
Every day when you're walking down the street.
Before Naruto, I didn't even know there was a whole genre of animated shows from Japan. Now, anybody that watched Naruto knows about this infamous swing. Apparently, this swing has more screen time than Tenten. I guess that's not a high bar to cross, considering that this pig has more screen time than Tenten. But honestly, this swing has been more useful to Naruto than Sakura. Again, not a high bar to cross there either.
I'm schizophrenic.
I swear you would be of more use to me if I skinned you and turned your skin into a lampshade.
Anyway, moving on to what this video is actually about. I tried recreating the swing in 3D using Blender. And here's the result. Now it's not perfect, but considering my skill level, I think it's serviceable. Let's be honest, there's hundreds of ways to do this, some that are way faster and easier than how I did it. But if you want to know how I did it, stick around and I'll show you. The first step is just drawing. I used this reference image and broke everything down into pieces. For example, drawing the building in one plane, the roof in another plane, and a tree trunk in another, and so on and so on. You get the idea. One thing I did was making sure that everything was flat. Instead of thinking 3D, I drew everything flat because I know that I can take that into Blender and make it 3D. Once I had all of the separate drawings, I moved on to Blender. The first thing you want to do is delete everything in the scene, and then bring in the drawings by clicking Shift A and then go into Image and then Mesh Plane. You'll need to click either Material or Render Viewport to actually see the drawings. After setting up the reference image, the first thing I did was the building and the roof. And in order to make them curved, I first created a loop cut by pressing Ctrl R and then moving that outwards a little bit, and then I pressed Ctrl B to create the bevel. And I did the same exact thing for the roof, except I rotated a little bit and also used the scale to make the top part a little bit smaller and the bottom part a little bit bigger. And for the door and the window, I just used loop cut and then moved it to make it look 3D. All of this is straightforward, nothing too complicated here. Next, I added the pipes using a Bezier curve. Once I had the shape I wanted from the Bezier curve, I went to the Property tab and then scrolled down to Bevel and then increased the depth. After adding the light, I still wasn't happy with the result. It just didn't quite look right. So I decided to add a little bit of haze or bloom over everything. In order to do this, I went to the Compositing tab and then clicked Use Node and then added a glare node. And I think that made the scene look much better. Once I was done with the modeling part, I moved on to the animation. In order to animate the leaves, I went to Edit mode and subdivided a few times. And then I clicked the Object Data Properties right here and then clicked the plus sign under Vertex Group. And then I went to Weight Paint and loosely painted over the leaves. Back in object mode, I clicked this physics property button right here and then click soft body. Under object, I lowered the friction and the mass, and for the control point, I selected the vertex group I created. And under simulation, I lowered the speed. And this slider you can adjust to your liking. And I went ahead and did the same thing for the other two drawings of the leaves. Once I was happy with the result, I went ahead and added an empty sphere. And under the physics tab, I clicked force field. And leaving all of the settings as is, I went down and clicked this button and then clicked graph editor. After selecting the x-axis, I went to the modifier tab on the right and then clicked add modifier and then noise. And then I changed the scale and the strength to my liking. Once I was happy with the tree, I moved on to the bushes. And I did the same exact steps as previously, but I didn't need to add another force field. I learned all of these techniques from this YouTube video, which I'll put a link in the description down below, along with any other useful information that helped me through this process. And finally, the animation part was done. Not quite sure why the bushes are bouncing like that.
That's suspicious.
I had to go back and lower the friction, mass and speed in order to fix this. Next, I wanted to add some shadow in the foreground. So after looking up gobos, I wanted to give that a try, which is quite simple. All I did was have a spotlight and have this drawing of leaves right below it, which was already giving me the look I was going for. But in order to elevate it, I went ahead and did the soft body and the force field again. This was actually very tasking for my laptop. I had multiple crashes, so make sure to always save your files beforehand. The last thing I did was add this line art using grease pencil. All I did was selected the object that I wanted outlined, then click Shift A, click grease pencil and then selected object line art. And then I increased the line thickness and lowered the opacity a little bit. And I did this for multiple objects in the scene. Overall, I had fun making this. It was very enjoyable to work on. Nothing was too difficult to do, and I learned some new techniques. Let me know what you think. If you have any suggestion to improve my artwork, just let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and here's the final result.